사이에서 다 졌었던 플래시 루즈랑 다시 한번 붙어서 한번 겨뤄보고 싶네요.
San Francisco is going crazy. Brazil scored the biggest goal of the tournament so far. They're taking down the LPL, and Brazil has done it.
They are looking to make the upset over CLGs.
They're looking at the Nexus. They're taking down the turret. They're taking down another.
It's going in. He kicks in Maple.
Maple flashes away. He's dead. And Cloud9, they don't give up. They don't surrender. And they take down Flash Wolves.
Fnatic going to win the Season 1 championships if they can hold.
Taipei Assassins are the Season 2 World Champions! This could be a 20-minute game for SK Telecom.
And Samsung White are the 2014 World Champions.
SKT will be your first ever two-time World Champions!
The fourth day of group stage action is about to unfold here live at the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium in San Francisco, California, and fans are here in droves to support the 16 teams striving to be the best in the world. And as yesterday, there's no shortage of energy or fandom in this building as fans will be driving their teams, cheering them on to the end of the first round robin here in the group stages. INTZ shown here making their way into the arena to do battle with AHQ. Westdoor going to be back in the lineup for AHQ today. And of course, fans in Chengdu, China are going wild for their teams, EDG and IMA, for them to cheer on today. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm James Dash Patterson, and joining me on the analyst desk are Clement Chu, Alberto Crumbs-Rengifo, and Joshua Jat-Leesman. We conclude our first round robin, week one here. How are we feeling today, gentlemen?
I'm feeling like we're roughly 3/8 of the way through the group stage as a whole.
That feels like a very accurate assessment of where we are right now. How about everybody else?
I mean, I'm really excited to see the final day of the first round robin just because it has so many little implications for the teams to kind of show their little niche on the meta and really show that they've actually improved and not just regressed.
It'll give us maybe somewhat of a complete picture having had all the teams play each other. Now that we've had a good look at all of our international competitors, though, we can really dive into some tournament trends as they develop.
Yeah, and we've had a bunch of fun jumping to conclusions about all the strength of all the teams, and it feels like everyone can beat anyone else. But when you look at the regional averages, actually, the Korean teams are 6-1 still, by far the most dominant region still. So while there is a lot of craziness, we still have that cream of the crop at the top.
And if you're looking at the bottom of the table, there's still 3 teams without wins in Flash Wolves, G2, and Splice. And surprise, none of those are wildcard teams. 2 of those actually were their first seeds from their region. We're looking at here is the Flash Wolves. I think they have to be really, really disappointed in themselves. They're looking back at this weekend thinking we should have gone 2-0 right here instead of 0-2.
Flash Wolves in particular have been ahead in the game more than any other team in the tournament, save for SKT. So they've been winning for a long time in most of these games and have to be really disappointed to be 0-2 right now.
Yeah, struggling to get those wins under their belt. Flash Wolves certainly expected to do a lot more damage here in the first week of group stages, but you contrast that with what might be now our new favorites in SKT.
And SKT has been looking so good. They came into the tournament, we're a little bit worried about how well they're going to be doing, but they're looking crisp. Their actual execution and ability to snowball games is the best one we've seen so far. And if they can keep this up to date, these guys might look like a very strong case for a 3-time world champion.
And if you look at where they've improved, it has to be the jungler position. They're firing off on both their junglers. Bengi and Blank are both playing. Blank yesterday said he's comfortable on the Nidalee, which has traditionally been one of his weaker picks now. And if you look at FLICKR, 2 player of the games, he's really leading his team, bodying Jensen and then just bodying another mid laner.
And as we talk about Nidalee, we got to talk about the early game jungle pool. Right now, it seems like teams have kind of taken an approach to pinch that jungle and make sure that teams don't have the ability to pressure the map early. And we've seen the rise of the likes of Skarner and Olaf kind of make their way. Skarner 2-0, undefeated. Maybe 3-0, actually not entirely sure about that. Olaf has been having a lot of success. His early game prowess has been pretty much unrivaled. It seems like a lot of the teams have no experience playing against this champion, and his snowballing out of control in these games.
Yeah, but on that note, Aurelion Sol has been re-enabled and is available to be picked right off the bat.
And I think it has a large impact on the pick and ban phase. It's not like some random champion is now available and maybe a team has been practicing it and ooh, we're gonna see it. No, it immediately slots in to the top tier mid laners among Syndra, Cassiopeia, and Vladimir. So it will be heavily banned or picked away. And I also think that opens up the jungle pool for some of the players to get the S-tier junglers more often, because we're going to be seeing another champion that's kind of crowding out the available bans for teams.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, especially because he has such a strong early ability to push the lane. It makes it so that the junglers can really hammer that early advantage and find more opportunities to roam. We see the likes of teams like CLG that are able to just go down to the bottom lane and find opportunities to affect the side lanes in areas that maybe teams aren't used to such a quick ability to play. On the other hand, he might just be banned and nobody wants to see him.
Well, we'll get 6 games to figure it out today. Now, yesterday we saw Smeb go huge, and we weren't the only ones who called it out. Alan Burns took to Twitter and said, that play by Smeb literally made me jump out of my chair. Us too, Alan. Us too.
Yeah, I think that play was amazing.
Running away! Expect gets caught down. He's got his PA, remember, but he needs Mega. Oh, delete it! Remember, I've seen one at G2 are aced.
The best timing I may have ever seen on a Kennen Ultimate. That was insane.
And the nastiest thing about that play is that they actually couldn't even flash out. They were silenced by Gorilla the entire time, so they just had to sit there and take the Kennen ulti, which was just beautiful to watch.
I mean, that win for them yesterday really was a team effort. Prey playing well, keeping them in the game. And then we had Pino with that huge steal. That allows Smeb to make this play set up by Koro in that silence, of course, as you mentioned. So now remember to hit us up at LOL Esports using the hashtag World's Big Plays and call out your favorite moments from Worlds 2016. But of course, as we turn towards today's games, let's check out the standings heading in to Day 4. Rocks Tigers lead Group A at 2-0. Defending champions SK Telecom T1 remain on top of Group B. Group C stands in a 4-way tie. Also neck and neck, Group D has 3 teams vying for that top spot. Today, 3 of our groups are back in action, beginning at Group C. The LMS's AHQ battles Brazil's INTZ kicking things off, followed by EDG versus H2K. Next is Group A. Albus Nox Luna take on European champions G2, followed by CLG versus the Rocks Tigers. Finally, Group B takes to the stage with 2-time world champions SK Telecom T1 versus the Flash Wolves. By the final game of the day, we're going to be seeing C9 and IMA doing battle. Now, throughout the tournament, Riot Games 2 is bringing you an alternate perspective on the action happening here at Worlds. Today, joining our casters along with Alex Each, Kiwi Kid, and Zig, they're going to be focusing on individual matchups and answering your gameplay and pro strategy questions live on air. And now AHQ Esports Club and INTZ are setting up on stage as we speak, so it's time for me to turn to you guys, ask you for those predictions to kick off the day. Down the line, who will be taking Clement?
I have to go with my own region. I think AHQ is going to win here. If you look at the best players on these teams, it's Ziv against Yang. And I think Ziv has just been so much more of a monster. 40% of his team's damage, he can take a lot of punches, and he can throw a lot back.
All right, zeroing in on the top lane matchup, what's the key for you, Crumbs?
Well, you know, the tournament has had so many wild things so far, as we were talking about earlier, and one of those is the intangible, the things that are happening that we don't really know how to actually measure those, the sickness of the players, the ability to play as underdogs or with those nerves. And I think that INTZ benefits a lot from that, especially now that their kind of expectations have been lowered. I think that that's a greater opportunity for them to strike back. So I think that INTZ actually has a decent shot at actually taking this, even though Mountain and AHQ have looked somewhat decent.
So you're going with INTZ as well?
Yes, I'm going with INTZ.
There it is, he's locked it in.
I'm happy to hear that. I think, though, to Clement's point, the stylistic matchup where you saw INTZ defeat EDG was when Mouse was very far behind in the top lane. I think AHQ's strongest player is their top laner Ziv, and I think that is a less probable thing to happen. I do think it can be a close game, but I also don't want to jump to conclusions here. INTZ has won a single game in the group stage here, and previously they were struggling in the wildcard qualifiers, so I need to see more consistency out of them, and AHQ has a consistency on the international stage, which is why I'm going to be going with AHQ for this game.
All right, we have a split decision here, but the teams will decide who's victorious. Now it's time to hand it off to the casters to set up for the first match of the day.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Max Atlas Anderson, here alongside Mitch Crepo Vorspulse and Indiana Frosker and Black. We're here to bring you our first match of the day, AHQ versus INTZ. And INTZ come into Worlds and shocked everyone by taking down China's Edward Gaming.
I mean, that's been the biggest surprise of the tournament, the fact that the IWC region is sitting now 2-2, whereas the LMS region on the other side is actually sitting 1-3, so kind of coming in a little bit of the favorites.
A little bit the favorites.
Statistically the favorites.
Statistically the favorites.
Statistically ahead, but we have to echo what the analyst desk was saying there, that these two teams, they kind of share the same strengths. Strong top and jungle pairing, and Ziv has been a monster so far in this tournament.
Yeah, Clement said on the desk that Ziv is part of 40% of his team's damage share. For comparison, the tournament average is 25%. So Ziv is far and above overperforming on the international stage right now.
But we have seen INTZ play well. We've also seen some flexibility in their style. Game 1, they had an incredibly high jungle proximity. Basically, the jungler and the top laner spent a lot of time together. In their second game, there was almost none of that whatsoever. So they actually changed up playstyles, whether it's flexibility or maybe failure to really let Yang shine. We'll have to see what happens in this game. Maybe we can finally see a trend in what INTZ's preferred playstyle here is at Worlds.
And that's the big concern, the fact that Talker is looking across from Westor right now and trying to weight Westor versus Chawi and who's going to be better in this particular matchup, especially with the Aurelion Soul now enabled.
Yeah, and of course the LMS so far this Worlds has been struggling to close out games. I mean, looking mostly at the Flash Wolves for that one, but also AHQ had a good way of getting back into the game against EDG, but were unable to close that one either.
Yeah, I think we can criticize the mid to late game macro a little bit from AHQ, but both these teams throughout the season rather have shown moments of brilliance when it comes to closing out games. For AHQ, that was in the regional qualifier when they swept through both 3-0 versus Machi and Hong Kong Esports. And then if you look at INTZ, yes, they struggled in the IWCQ qualifier, but in the regular season, in the CBLOL, they were actually praised for their macro. So it all depends which one of these versions of these teams is going to show up in this match.
I think it's very fair to say as well, INTZ's dominant performance over EDG actually looked like one of the cleanest games the tournament has seen so far. I mean, outside the SKT, overarching dominance on Cloud9 and IMA. So INTZ is still looking very strong in their macro play.
That's exactly right. But let's go down the line and review our starting lineups. The first belongs to AHQ. Ziv on the top side of the map, Mountain in the jungle, Westor back in the mid lane, and Arn and Albus will be our AD carry and support with Green Tea coaching from behind.
And their opponent is the representative from Brazil's CBLOL. It's INTZ Esports. In the top lane, it's going to be Yang, their superstar jungler Revolta. Talker's in the mid lane, Macau AD carry, and joining him is going to be Jockster on support.
And I'm so pleased that they get the support from the crowd too. You know, these guys come in not that popular. Many people don't really tune into the region that often, but then when they get to Worlds and they opening game, they smash EDG, suddenly they make a statement, and the crowd is definitely rallying behind INTZ.
And they're just pretty much building on a legacy at this point, one that Kaboom and Pain have set up, and it's so funny because INTZ for the longest time have been so dominant domestically in the region. To finally have them take this large step on this type of international stage is very exciting for the fans back in CBLOL.
Yeah, they most certainly gained the respect on day number 1, and we'll see whether they can continue that trend as we hop into Champion Select. AHQ, of course, will be on our blue side. Na going to be the first ban away from Yang, and I have a feeling that one's going to be relatively consistent after his performance against Mouse.
Yeah, 2 signature bans here, one within the scope of the tournament and one within the scope of the player in terms of Westor. He always sees that TF ban, regardless whether it's meta or not. They just don't want to hand it to him. Because let's be honest, without some of his comfort picks, he has been looking pretty weak.
And now I'm just curious, will Westor pick up the Aurelion Soul, or will Talkers look towards that, or will both teams decide to ban it, especially as now that Syndra ban has hit the bench?
Yeah, Syndra actually banned on the blue side here, which is interesting. Might be an Aurelion Soul adaptation, as Tom Kench was banned against Albus, and the Olaf is going to see the final ban.
And I think it would make sense if Westor has practiced that Aurelion Soul, because one of his main weaknesses is just his laning ability and the fact that he yields pressure. If there's one pick you can lock in, and with which, with relative ease, you could
just wander
forward
around the lane and you have pressure.
It is the Aurelion Soul. However, with these non-jungler bans, we have to take look at the priority here. And Italy's only seen 1 game of play here at Worlds, despite being 100% pick and ban. And this will be the second game, I believe, in the entirety of the tournament we're seeing the jungle champion come out.
Yeah, so the Nidalee going to be left up. Does mean that Revolta can head over to his Lee Sin that he's hovering at the moment. Hasn't locked it in. Of course, something like the Rek'Sai is there as well. He did play that in his second game, but to not as great effect.
Yeah, I don't think you need to match junglers here necessarily. A good rotation could be a Sivir Aurelion Soul, setting you up for a very speedy composition. You can still augment that relatively dangerous pick in Sivir in terms of laning. You need to fix that matchup a little bit with the support. But if you have a Sivir Aurelion Soul as the foundation of your team comp, you can go a lot of directions here if you're INTZ.
Might mean that they're a little bit afraid to show their mid lane pick this early in, although now
Doesn't look like they're afraid of anything right now, FLICKR, and if they're going to lock that one in. 1 second to go. No, it's going to be the... Oh, Ash!
So many different directions.
In, and the Cassiopeia there as well. He was playing with our hearts. Revolta, all the time, just playing with our hearts.
So this is something cool. Macau had a great performance on Ash earlier, hitting those really nice arrows, particularly on a certain Chinese jungler. But the thing that I like is that Macau and Jockster aren't necessarily known for their lane dominance, especially when you look in the context of this international tournament, but giving him a power pick and not being afraid to move towards the Ashe despite her nerfs, to be that playmaker in the late game, I think is what's catching a lot of teams off guard for INTZ's power.
In addition to that, within the scope of this matchup, I think it is a fine pick, because if you look at Anne and Albus, they're not that strong in a 2v2 laning scenario either, so the Ashe could actually survive and then peak towards the point of the game where she's actually very strong, which is making those picks, getting that skirmish in for INTZ, and that's the way they beat EDG as well. So in that sense, the Ashe pick would make sense. The Cassiopeia one is a little dangerous here, because Aurelion Sol is a fine matchup. If you haven't seen yet, Fly versus FLICKR was a beautiful Aurelion Sol versus Cassiopeia matchup there over in the LCK.
Well, now AHQ are looking at their bottom lane, and the Alistair Sivir is going to be locked in. A lot of engage now in the hands of Albus.
We've seen a lot of the Chinese teams looking towards Alistair as kind of that support coming back in.
Yep.
So I'm glad to see that he still has a presence on this international stage comparatively to the range supports like the Nami that's really been picking up for this international tournament. Typically, he gives away a lot of lane pressure because he doesn't have that range advantage, but when you're laning against Sivir, you're usually just laning against creeps anyway.
Yeah, exactly right. And we'll see whether it is going to be Macau being able to deal with that one. Has a lot of utility himself. Tokka's thinking about what he wants to do, and as far as what INTZ have been playing towards, it doesn't always have to necessarily be towards the top side of the map, even though that was how they managed to take down EDG. Jockster has a ridiculous jungle proximity, something like 26%
It
there
literally
from the bottom side of the map.
Went from 26% in the top lane to 30% for the mid lane. So INTZ very flexible in choosing where they're going to camp, top or mid.
And that's what we're going to see. Are they flexible, or do you just don't know what they're doing, specifically in every game? Like after we see more games come out, the sample size goes up, we can see more trends, and one of these trends could be though the Lee Sin for Revolta.
Yeah, well, Lee Sin's going to come back. That's certainly looking like a trend now, but the Bard for Jockster is such a big deal. Played it 11 times, his most played champion in the regular season, 80% win rate as well for INTZ. We'll see whether he's going to be able to demonstrate some brilliance here.
And right now, there is so much pick potential riddled throughout INTZ's composition. They have playmaking ability across the board.
Well, speaking of playmaking ability, I have a feeling he's probably just flashing it for the moment.
Signature champion, of course, for Westcore here.
Definitely.
But I'm really liking the scrappy comp here for INTZ. Focused mostly around picks and then snowballing. Something you can do against a team where you match up relatively equally, stylistically. Strong top laner, strong jungler, pretty even in mid and bot. And then the difference can be made by having the gusto to actually go for these bold plays. You know, throw that bar ultimate out, send that Ashe arrow out, hope it hits and play around it. However, it's going to be hard to play into a Malzahar passive and a Sivir spell shield, and then Alistair that can kind of go full bodyguard, jump in front of the bullet, and then ulti out.
Yeah, exactly right, and that is going to be locked in. Of course, the Jace coming in as well for Ziv. Lots of damage from the top side of the map. As once again, the Malzahar into Cassiopeia matchup for Westall. Ryu had a good time last time we saw it. Jockster now having a look at some Kled.
Before we get too excited over the possible Kled lock-in, just quickly touching back on AHQ's composition and what they've got the makings of. I like the fact that they have so much lane pressure and pushing power on both the Sivir and the Malzahar, and then they pair that in tandem with the Nidalee jungle, opening up a lot of space so Mount can possibly look for invades if he chooses to play that aggressive, fast style.
Yeah, you definitely want lane push. It's going to be rough though from the mid lane. The early levels, Malzahar has to concede to Cassiopeia. Right now, ITZ is thinking, do we go with the conventional cannon or the rumble?
They do.
It is actually the cannon lock in here, so there's definitely kill pressure. If you look at what Lee Sin needs laners that provide CC for themselves, and cannon's actually quite reliable at getting at least one stun off on a gank. So if we see Revolta path top early for Yang, there's actually a world where Ziv is getting camped, just like the EG top laner was.
And just to piggyback on that, Krepa, I completely agree. I love how there's hard CC available in every single lane for Revolta. We saw that when they were successful against EDG, it was about snowballing, making plays, and Revolta has all of the tools on this composition to do that.
Yeah, and if INTZ want to move around the map as well, I mean, the global power as well coming out of that Enchanted Crystal Arrow can take AHQ by surprise, theoretically. But of course, AHQ are the team that do like to do that lane swap early on, that 5-minute mark, move towards the top side of the map, utilize the lack of fortification and try and get that first turret. See whether that is going to be something that they change up, because that has been relatively consistent.
The Mountain versus Revolta is the matchup we need to track.
Which mountain are we going to get today?
Which mountain? Level 3. We need to see the vision, see where they invade at each other, because a Nidalee can be stopped by a Lee Sin if he sees her coming. And in addition to that, This is the first time Mountain has played Italy since week 9 of Spring Split.
Oh my goodness. Well, he has had some phenomenal performances so far here at Worlds. He has looked fine. Mountain hasn't necessarily gone back to his regular season ways, but that is dangerous. And we want you to get on Twitter. Tell us who you're backing. Tweet at LOL Esports with hashtag AHQ win or the hashtag ITZ win and get behind your team. INTZ, I have a feeling, will be getting a few more votes this time around.
Yeah, finally heading into game here. We've seen relatively passive level ones, no super deep invades.
Nothing too exciting.
The whole goal is usually to get a little bit of deep vision to figure out where this jungle starts. And you can extrapolate a lot of information if you find the location. So let's see if any of these teams are going to go for Cheeky Warden over at Crux, at Red Buff to get a little bit of information from level 1 to work with.
Nidalee is typically much safer at gathering information just because she has the ability that she can go over the walls if she chooses so.
Yep, can run a little bit faster as well. Just spending some time in those bushes. But at the moment, INTZ just spreading themselves out. Tokka's actually moving towards the bottom side as Jockster finds himself a chime. There it is.
It's important. Brush dominance is the new law of level 1. This is actually quite a bit of a bind and Albus have picked themselves in. Sivir Alistar is not that easy to play into such a poke-heavy lane like Ashe and Bard. The nerfs for Ashe make it more sustainable, but they're doing a great job. Look at how they're securing basically lane vision, and now they're going to go probably for the late camp stop. Check if somebody's in the brush. They don't want the Alistar Sivir lane to do camp. I doubt they want to do camp themselves, but they just want to get lane dominance early on.
I know you like to talk about this a lot, Crepo, the fact that Bard is actually empowered the longer you spend at level 1 because he is so strong at level 1 himself due to those empowered auto attacks with those meeps.
Slap him around from the hip.
Remember, guys, if you do want to check out the Ziv and Yang stream, it is on Riot Games 2 right now.
Who wouldn't want to check that out, though?
Hey, that's a very good point. It is a very good point. Mountain and Ziv now setting up to start things off. So this Nidalee will probably get a creep before 3 minutes.
Look how they're respecting the bush here. They're trying to juke out the combo.
Yeah, good pulverize comes in. Jockster takes a fair bit of damage and misses the Cosmic Binding.
They achieved what they wanted. They were hiding outside of that ward vision. They throw a volley into the brush first, then he walked in and out of the brush to kind of juke the combo maybe, or the pulverize router. And right now it's all about lane control, poking the Alistar down, using that double range advantage without pushing too much. So once they've secured the push here, they should be focusing on poke. But I think Ann and Albus are relatively okay with how fast this wave is actually pushing in.
And we'll see where the wave ends up actually settling. A lot of AD carry and support duos are trying to get this wave to settle right here that you have it on your screen right now so they can get a nice safe freeze. It's a little bit too close to the tower that you can't be super aggressive, but something that I love about Ashe is that when she does get you underneath that tower, her poke due to the volley is just so punishing. Sivir really doesn't get that same type of poke under tower because she's relying more on the ricochet bounces.
At the moment, they are going to shove it all the way up to this outer turret. Now Albus and Arn will have some time to get themselves some creeps. Mountain already up to his Raptor camp.
Yeah, pretty standard or relatively greedy clears here by both jungles. 3 camps on one side is something we saw less and less at the start of the 6.15 up to 16.18 patch because you could swap sides of the map a lot quicker here. Now Revolta has done 3 camps into enemy red buff contest. He's just going to be late here. You should always assume that Nidalee is done with this camp here, so I don't know what Revolta's actually doing. This is quite fortunate that he actually spotted Mountain right there.
Yeah, Tokka's was moving around as well, but Mountain should be absolutely fine.
I have to agree. Nidalee, it's not so surprising that she would look for a sizable clear, although hold on.
Westor taking so much damage. Good silence comes out, but the Twin Fangs are still there, and Westor has no mana whatsoever. Decent trade, but Tokka's, he took a fair bit as well.
And that means that it's going to be the pot advantage now for Talkers in that mid lane. We had some questions about Westor versus Talkers, if Talkers would be able to punish that on an international stage, international competition.
Yeah, headbutt pole. Jockster takes some damage, but man, this guy is aggro on the Bard. More than happy to fight back.
Yeah, but we need to gauge how well the pressure is going into the other lanes here, because the jungle duo is what we were watching. This will be a breaking point eventually. This bot lane will get out sustained. But Ann and Albus should be able to find a base. They're relatively even CS. Mountain right now stealing a little bit away. I think he's definitely punishing Revolta here. It was a little over-eager to invade such a late red buff. Usually you want to do a 2-camp or a 3-camp straight invade, but having 3-camp left side to then walk all the way over to contest red buff is a little over-eager.
Ziv really putting some pressure down here towards the top side. Even throws the ward down onto Yang and cops a shock blast to the face. So Little Cannon struggling just a little bit, but it's not really showing in the CS. He should be fine.
Yeah, it definitely helps that you can just throw your ward in lane when your jungler is securing Scuttlecraft vision.
Yeah.
We're seeing why Nidalee is such a potent jungler here on this patch too. Just the clear speed that she can have is just phenomenal. She can outpace most, if not all, junglers in the current meta.
We'll see what Mountain is going to be able to do with all of the pressure that he's going to be acquiring from the jungle. At the moment, he's just out farming the heck out of Revolta.
Again, you're still competing and waiting for your hard CC. So the big thing about Nidalee jungle is that she doesn't have that hard CC. So she's pretty much reliant on either the post Malzahar 6, but hold on.
Big moment here, big moment. If this gang hits, it's so big for ITZ.
Lightning Rush goes in, but Yang takes so much damage. Revolta now going to have to look for a 1v1, and yeah, the minions are making it far more than that. Revolta takes so much damage. Yang, he might just be an afterthought kill as the shock blast comes down. Will the Marcus not good flash? But Westor's turned up and he's going to get the first blood.
The presence of mind from Ziv to realize he was in a full minion wave and simply 1v2 that. Beautifully played.
And this is something that Ziv is very well known for back home. It's his ability to turn around 2v1 scenarios like that. Kind of known as more of a conservative top laner, but showing up big here.
There were about 1,000 minions doing everything they could for AHQ in that fight.
But this gank is so important. Look, massive wave here. This is over eager. Yang is also giving it away. Not getting a good angle to stun Ziv. Ziv was never stunned down, so Revolta had a really hard time connecting his Q in this minion wave, and they're going in very disjointed. The minions are basically getting full access to both players one by one, and even with the flash here, look at this. Wester comes in to finish it off, but this is so well played by Ziv, and the context of what this means within the game is just defeating for INTZ. They were already behind in jungle pacing, and they fall much farther behind right now.
And Revolta was never able to Q during that entire exchange. There was minions that Ziv had placed between him and the Lee Sin that entire time.
Had a horde in front of him.
Yeah, well, admittedly, it didn't take all that much effort as Ziv gets out-traded by Yang. Good dodge. As Mountain still waiting on this top side. Remember, no flash for the cannon.
He warded over, so he has no clue that Mountain's in this, but he smells something, but can he actually do anything? Yang's still level 5.
Yeah, Spear is actually going to land as well. There's the pounce and the takedown onto the cannon. This is a disaster for INTZ.
And this is where INTZ found success when they did win their game. It was through the top lane and Yang, and now he has been firmly shut down for this early game.
And Revolta has been punished for his early game decision-making. He went for an invade and an early top gank, costing himself a lot of CS. If that gank failed, he would pay the price, and it failed super hard.
It certainly did, and that's going to result in a 20 CS lead for Ziv on the top side of the map. INTZ trying to make up for it on the bottom side with a big zone. Good preemptive spell shield, but didn't need it. Poison lands onto Albus, but Talkers won't be able to find a kill. I'll just get them off the turret.
Yeah, pretty smart from INTZ. Realizing they're weak in the top side, they're putting all their eggs in the bot lane. First turret basket here with a very telegraphed roam, but even then, you still have to respect it on the side of AHQ.
It's now about what can be grabbed in response to this. The first tower bonus surely will fall for INTZ right there, but meanwhile on the other side of the map, Mountain continuing his counter jungling siege, stealing the red buff and now moving towards Raptors.
Yeah, and it's not even going to give them a gold lead as well. AHQ 200 in the lead as INTZ 83%. The CBLOL fans out in force, as they generally are.
Just the 6th man behind this team, and speaking of 6 men.
Yeah, they are moving towards the mid lane as Mountain trying to get himself out. Good Q from Revolta. Oh. There's the kick. Flash Mountain flashes his way out, but he's gone the wrong way. The flash onto it. Talkers gets the stun, and Mountain's gonna die.
Superstar jungler Revolta right there. Sick Lee Sin mechanics. I know it's known as the insect, but might as well name it the Revolta after that play.
Yeah, kick flash comes out. Really good chaining of abilities. Quite unfortunate for Mountain. As he turns out to throw a spear, he goes right into the R flash from Cassiopeia. Let's watch it again. Mountain, let's be honest here, probably shouldn't be here. A little overextended. Kick flash comes out. Actually, right before the silence connects. And then right here, R flash, and as he turns around, he gets petrified in that petrifying gaze. That's a little unfortunate here because he was going 1-for-1 onto Jogster. Maybe it was going to force a flash. Slightly over-eager by Mountain, so at least tallying up the mistakes 1-1 in terms of over-eager moves between Revolta and Mountain.
Yeah, and that's going to even things up. INTZ still behind a couple of hundred, but 2-1 is the kill score. 1 tower in favor of INTZ. The fact that the gold still leans a little bit towards AHQ on that front after that first turret blood does mean that AHQ still have a heck of a lot of control, especially from that top side, which is very quickly getting out of control.
So what is important is that it's the bottom tower that's down right now. So On and Albus are doing a good job making sure that Macau and Jogster are still locked down, you know, pushing the way forward, making sure that Ashe has to be there to pick up the free CS. But as soon as this Ashe starts getting unlocked from the play, that's when INTZ can continue their snowball by using that Ashe arrow.
Yeah, Mountain kind of sneakily going into the pit here. But it's this point right here, the top lane. That's the breaking point of this matchup. I'm seeing another gank come out.
Yeah, there's the Maelstrom as Ziv gets stunned up, but he's trying to take it back here. The kick preemptively puts him into the turret, and Revolta just smacks him in the face.
It looked so great for a second. Will we see another 1v2? But then he actually canceled one auto attack, and he was simply kicked into the turret range here. Great moves here by INTZ. First playing around their weak point by going bot, and then fixing the mistakes they made earlier by getting another kill on the top side.
In response, though, AHQ will pick up the Infernal Drake, but I also wanted to point out the great response from Macau and Jockster to realize that their team was making a play on the top side of the map and to back up and play very defensively on the bottom side of the map. So great cross-map communication to keep them safe.
Now Westor now getting pressured a little bit by Tockers out of this lane in mid. But this is not the same story as what it was against Ryu. 84 to 90 is no problem here for Westor, who was expected to struggle in this matchup.
Definitely not the easiest matchup to play. You lose a little bit of pressure early. Westor even roamed up for that kill initially, so he hasn't been punished too much. Tockers was donating that one kill, but it cost him a flash, which means there's a relatively little zone. He's staying even CS, which is honestly what AHQ want him to do.
Look at all of those chimes. Jock's having a field day right now. Fantastic. Yang going to take himself down some Krugs. Ziv shoves that wave one more time towards that top side of the map. Mountain forever hovering around his top laner.
Now we're hitting the point of the game where INTZ can actually start playing towards the composition in terms of making picks. If Mikau gets a base off, walks into any random lane, and Ash Shower combined with a teleport could pay off well for INTZ, but they need to keep Yang alive here because this tower is falling and Mountain shows up again.
Yeah, and out goes Yang. He's trying to escape. Good flash after the pounce as Mountain will be able to catch up to him. Another pounce comes in. He gets under another turret, but is that going to be enough? Tempered Fate was almost there, but Ziv gets the kill.
Revolta is underneath them.
Oh, good Q. He's still looking for it. Fair bit of damage now as the kicks knock one out the minions. They're not there, and Revolta is going to be taken down. This chase is so damn big. The acceleration gate should be able to get him to safety. Tockers could not chase after that man.
And the minion aggro not enough to finish off Mountain. So close there for Revolta.
Yeah, Revolta looking to kind of make up for a mistake earlier by his team. Going pretty greedy, knowing he would likely die at the end of that play. This would be so defeating for ITZ to not only lose 2 kills in that exchange in the top lane, but also lose their mid lane turret. A mid lane turret is so important if you want to keep any semblance of control on the map.
And the reason why is because Ziv is absorbing so much pressure into the top lane. All of INTZ.
Oh, Macau Westor from over the side. Albus into the Hepar Pulverize. The silence comes in. Malefic Visions will finish it off, and Westor picks up the Ash.
Now, out of Fog of War, totally unexpected to get a random Malzahar ulti
Yeah,
into
it's like,
the
wow,
flash
there's
cow.
purple attached to my head. What happened?
Why am I stunning on a bunch of void things?
I was expecting a pause.
It's that moment
Can't
when
move my character.
you're actually looking down lane and suddenly your screen's just red.
Yeah.
Why is my screen gray?
Yeah.
Happens every time.
Happens to me a lot, Crepo. Revolta is going to be able to secure his rev buff at least. Not his blue. His Mountain is going to steal that one away and give it to Westor here. A lot of control. Bottom side of the map as that turret, of course, did fall down as well. AHQ taking away the whole outer ring. And now getting themselves out to about a 4,000 gold lead.
A lot of control is a bit of an understatement. There are 4 blue players sitting down there in that bottom lane looking to pressure this inner tower. And again, it's because Ziv absorbing so much pressure. There were 3 members of INTZ on the top side. Safely backs away, and it's another free tower and objective for AHQ.
AHQ is definitely leaning on their strengths here. Whenever they see an opening, they're not afraid to take it here. And this is some of the things that we were expecting from INTZ coming into the tournament. They opened with a very big surprise, but they're still looking to kind of dot the I's, cross the T's in their play. A little overeager at times, not always thinking too far ahead of what the repercussions of a play is going to be. And then we have to go back to the early game. Revolta going for the early invade, getting outpaced. And then Yang finding himself 1v2'd in the top lane.
Yeah, we have to look back at what H2K did to INTZ. And it was just slow, methodical play. They didn't do anything too fancy. They just played cleaner League of Legends. AHQ looking to try and do the same thing. Of course, anything can happen. It's only 14 minutes into this game. INTZ have an uphill battle.
So with Dragon still on timer right now, the #1 move for AHQ is to move into the top side jungle, that red side, and start placing down their triangle vision. That's what you see Albus and Mountain doing right now on your screen. And they're going to start applying pressure and bouncing waves between mid and top tower, looking for picks or chip damage on those turrets.
Yeah, they definitely want to play around their last easily accessible tier 2 tower. It's really hard to get anything mid. Mountain's right now on the...
Oh my goodness, massive Hepar Pulverizes. Revolta's been saved by Jockster, but Mountain hasn't. Talker's over side, almost takes him down, but he doesn't take a Janet Kushlara, not enough.
Mount was
Mikhail was so close.
stuck across the wall on the miasma. He was wondering why he couldn't jump over him, but when he realized, he turned around straight into the petrifying gaze and was so close for coverage. But he stayed on too
good
long.
flash out of the head, but the miasma's there as well as Taka's looking to turn this one. Remember, the ultimate's still available from Albus. Doesn't pop it.
And we're good.
Yeah, I think so.
Actually subsides.
AHQ still do have momentum to at least get some damage here, although Bard's hanging around in the area, as well as forcing Talkers to cancel his back so they don't get this turret for free, but they should just shove in the wave.
Yeah, they have a lot of poke here. INTZ, very reliant on their big cooldowns to really force things. Westdoors is grouped up in mid lane with Mountain. Another spear gonna follow up, but that's
there it is. So easy as the pounce comes through afterwards. AHQ should be able to get a lot of damage onto this turret.
And when Malzahar was reigning for so long on 6.16, it was really just the oppressive reach of that ultimate there. Just catches Macau off guard.
Yeah, we have to wonder what INTZ is doing in terms of predicting these plays, because Yang is hanging around in the bot lane, desperately looking for that level 11 to get the second point of the ultimate, but he had teleport up right there. Maybe they could have red countered the play, played a little bit more safe here. It feels like INTZ is thinking about what they should do next, but they're never calculating into that thought process what their opponent's about to do. They're not reading the plays. They're playing very reactive. And it works when you're ahead, because you can always make the first move, make the pick. But in these situations, you got to read your opponent and actually make a trap.
They have so many tools to do that as well in their composition, because there are so many poke options available for them. So the nice thing is that if they do fall behind, there's always going to be an answer or a play that they can make, because they can quickly turn a 4v5 into a 5v5 into a 4v5.
Yeah, they can make a single pick on a target or just lock somebody down. The problem is AHQ obviously knows that. In simplicity, simplicity gets you predictability too. AHQ is definitely going to be careful.
It just goes back to the beauty of that composition, like you were talking about champions, like the fact that they have the spell shield, that they have the Malzahar passive, that you have Alistar who can go into his ultimate and walk out of hard CC.
That was a free dragon taken by Mountain, though. Was able to secure that by himself. Revolta on a ward. There's a headbutt pole from Albus. Slowed down by the Cosmic Binding as the Q is going to land. Not sure that's the target he wants. The Safeguard gets Revolta out again. On the hunt has been used. Magical Journey gets INTZ all group back up.
Yeah, we're still looking for Jockster to get an impact on his game. He feels like he's arriving late to many situations. Tempered Fate comes out to save rather than to engage and make a pick. Brush camping right now for INTZ. Desperately looking for just somebody who's not paying attention on the side of AHQ.
Still has the arrow available, does Macau. Arn and Albus going to move once again aggressively into the jungle of INTZ. This pink ward should be found and taken down. Ooh, nice stun with the Cosmic Binding. Decent follow-up, but that tower was always going to fall down. What? That was not a very magical journey, but he is still going to be okay.
Sometimes it's just a little shorter than you would expect. The journey, of course.
No, I just needed to live in that pause for a little while.
You can also see that Mikao was really confused as to what to do, and it's indicative that INTZ is playing a very reactive playstyle. He was facing back and forth at the Krug wall, basically not knowing, do I join mid? Are we giving up this tower? If we do I go top? No, because I will get rotated on. He's figuring out the counterplays to his own actions live, instead of 30 seconds or a minute ahead, and that's keeping INTZ in this perpetuous defensive position where AHQ then have the time to easily rotate. Like, look, they went from mid to top. There's no counterplay. There's no pushed out wave bottom here. For AHQ, the world is their oyster because of the lack of resistance and prediction on the side of INTZ.
You do have Yang making his way up into the top lane, but almost too little too late as this tower is quickly falling.
Oh, and Macau is doing exactly the same thing, down to about 300 health. The flash pulverizes Yang. He's going to get headbutted away, which makes a bit of sense. Ultimate comes out of Albus as AHQ. There's the arrow, and Albus not going to stay healthy for long. Good exhaust onto Yang as he gets punted out, but Tokers is able to take down Macau.
Great interaction right there for Ziv on the Jace to make sure that he can swing Kinnan away and allow a clean disengage from AHQ, only dropping Albus on Alistar.
Yeah, knocks it out of the park on that one, because that was the follow-up that INTZ was looking for. But when you start looking for so many flanks, you actually leave your main side of the fight exposed. Look, there's so many members here. Yang and Revolta both looking for flanks. That Jockster and Mikao got poked out. Albus right now watched a little bit too much of Mata. He wants to be the playmaker. The tower was down. The objective was secured. We won't fault him for it, but here we go. Ziv just straight going for that home run, knocks him into his team. AHQ still take a tower for a kill. They're happy.
But this is the right mentality from INTZ and how they want to approach their team fights. Again, they're facing across from a lot of poke damage in the Nidalee, in the Jace. Make these flanking plays, make these hard, aggressive engagements.
Yeah, the plan is definitely the right thing. You want to open up with that CC, with that Bard, with the arrow, but you got to plan it out, map it out a little bit better. no need to take the poke early, pull the trigger a little bit earlier, just go hard or go home on the side of INTZ, because if you enter a fight on half HP already, you're basically conceding. You've lost already, and definitely very hard with the large gold deficit they're facing. They're looking to stay in this game and hopefully stall out the Dasher enough so they can pick up the side lane farm and maybe become competitive later on, but it's a very large gap.
Yeah, most certainly is. We'll see whether they can get things to calm down, because so far AHQ have been fantastic at forcing these plays. 7,000 gold the lead, 6-3 in kills, which isn't huge, but only 20 minutes into this one. AHQ with a lead, 26 wins and 0 losses.
And I wonder what time it is, as we're now setting up for the Baron. The Infernal Drake
Our
will
stats
be...
guy's pretty good at timing.
Our Infernal Drake will be spawning relatively soon, so for now, if they can make a pick while they have this window to play towards the top side of the map, they can easily rotate into that objective. But otherwise, set your vision down, see what you get, throw out your fish hook, see if something bites.
Didn't find one just then, as On the Hunt was used for AHQ to try and find some sort of pick in the jungle. Didn't quite get there.
Yeah, this is what AHQ did very well in the regional qualifier.
Oh, the dream! INTZ back in it with the Raptor Steal.
The Raptor Steal to turn it all around.
That's how it works.
Momentum. If only it was that simple. But yeah, AHQ did this very well in their regional qualifier. They actually understood the steps towards isolating objectives. They've done a fantastic job, because even when you're winning this hard, to get all 6 towers on the map this quick is honestly very impressive. Can't be understated. Right now, they want to isolate the next objective, either a Baron Vision early, but they likely will, as Frost mentioned, pivot towards that Infernal Drake, just pick it up for security.
It's the nice thing of not just having a poke composition, but understanding how it relates into Siege and using it in the right spot. Some teams, they'll have their poke and they can execute well on that around team fights like monster objectives, but they don't move it around towers where it needs to be. And AHQ have done a phenomenal job this game, making sure that they're layering that poke and chipping away at these structures.
Yeah, and right now they have inhibitor turrets to siege down, so it will be a little bit more difficult, but with that Baron available, could be an opportunity. However, very early in this game, we'll see whether it is going to be contesting things like buffs, everything else around the jungle and things like that can get themselves that window to start pushing forward.
Yeah, and Honest giving necessary respect to the Jockster and Volta. Magical Journey into a kick could be enough here, so AHQ keeping their auto turrets alive. Very hard to keep all these structures alive while playing the map at the same time, so it becomes with a slow, methodical play that is necessary. Their composition, as Frost alluded to, is also really built good versus the counters to poke. Because the counters to pokes is just instant flank, instant engage, and if you have an Alistar or a Malzahar passive or a Spell Shield to just give you that little window where you can react in, that is usually enough to kind of disengage, reset the fight, and then win by poking more.
But even if they do win a team fight, the other thing that AHQ's composition has in spades is their wave clear. And it's almost like they have to completely ace them, because if any of Malzahar, Sivir, or Jace are left alive, they're going to be able to neutralize any advantage they get by clearing out the waves when INTZ try to siege objectives.
Yeah, the abundance of wave clear makes it so that Baron is the most contested objectives. Different regions have different approaches. In the LPL,
we just kind of run head first.
As long as you're ahead,
Baron, man.
As long as you're ahead, you can start Baron. In other regions, people really want that 100-0, no 50-50 shenanigans. Right now, the wave minion or the map control router is translating into a free dragon here for AHQ. We'll get to soon judge them on their Baron bait execution.
And that's 3-0 as well, as AHQ grabbed 2 Infernals and a Cloud.
This means that we can now start picking up our vision. You see AHQ have a lot of it in that bottom blue side jungle. They're going to, again, pick up that triangle, move it over to the top side, and this is when the Baron bait that Krepa was talking about really comes into execution.
I mean, it's good to leave the vision lingering a little bit, because it'll enable Ziv to play in a bot lane. You always want to put your teleport farthest away from the objective you're doing. They're going from Baron right now. That means Ziv's going to play on a bot lane. But because that lane is so long and there's no turrets anymore, he really wants to play at the enemy's base. Those wards are going to help him. And then it's obviously up to Albus to move over, get some deep vision behind the Baron in the enemy red buff. Basically tell INTZ, if you're going to face check, it'll be at a cost.
Certainly will. Do want to have a look at the items just quickly, as Yang has finished that Zhonya's Hourglass, which is going to be very important to avoid getting smacked out of these teamfights by a headbutt or a big hammer from the Jace.
You know, despite sitting 0, 3, and 2, Yang does have his core itemization in the Hourglass as well as the Proto Belt.
The problem with this particular build for Kennen is it's a good build when you're ahead, because what it lacks in damage, it makes up in buying time, sustainability throughout the fight. But if you really need the window, like the Smeb Kennen ulti, that's when you need a more damage-oriented build, like an earlier allies, maybe like an Abyssal into Proto Belt. The Zhonya's itself is really not going to do too much for him, and even if he gets a 4-man stun, he'll likely not.
Oh my goodness, speaking of a stun, Jockster is going to be taken down. He was in his journey, he was having a good time, but not now. He's in the death chamber.
Got locked down. Can't take that portal while silenced. or suppressed for that matter. Revolta here with Macau.
There's the arrow onto Mount, but in goes Albus. The knock-up's there. The spear's not going to land as there goes Albus. Dragon Rage kick going to get him out of there. Tokka's heading around as well as Revolta getting chased by the cat and the cow. Jockster over the wall. Westor, he's going to be taken down, but Ziv's going to get revenge. Eventually, there it is. The shutdown actually given to Westor as Mountain Primal Surge and Revolta is going to escape.
Scrappy fight across the board, but in the end, AHQ do come out on top. Low health bars, however, so they can't immediately turn towards the Baron, looking for more.
Oh, in goes Mountain. Revolta is going to fall, but that's a trade, and maybe one that INTZ will be happy with. There it is, eventually a trade.
Mountain is out for blood. He really takes this one-on-one battle duel seriously against Revolta. But we have to go back. INTZ started this pickup. Right now, Ziv's in trouble.
Yeah, he's been exhausted. Yang's going to stun him up one more time. Proto Belt, and there it is. The top laner going to be able to take down his opponent, but that's going to cost him an inhibitor turret in the top lane.
All right, what a mess here. We see on the Hunt Pump, spell shield down, so we should finally see the action subside. But it was INTZ starting this play with an arrow, yet Yang did not teleport in at any point, and we have to question that relationship within this team. Are these guys talking to each other? Are they really setting up the same play together, or are they going for in the moment, you know, reactive plays like we talked about against EDG? It was working because they were so far ahead, but right now it seems to be falling apart. Like, they're camping in this bush for over 4 seconds. They're gonna go for an arrow. At this point, we should see a TP from the Ken come out.
What an incredible response from Albus as well to immediately flash, pulverize, lock them up, so it wasn't the team fight that they were looking for. And then this just turns into massive 1v2s and 3v2s split.
Yeah, because Ziv comes in there, full 5 seconds ahead. Yang walks to the mid lane, walks into the base here. We see pistols at Dawn, Mountain and Revolta. Eventually both end up dropping in that exchange.
It was definitely exciting. Tokka's going to clear out all of the minions there in the mid lane. INTZ trying to gather some normalcy.
I mean, if the Q lands, it's, what is it, Nidalee Syndrome?
Hey, yeah.
Actually works.
That's really cool. Both of them can do the same crazy things.
And we're back in the dance.
Yeah, first step is always getting the mid push, so Westor alone can't get it. So they need his teammates to group mid, push out the wave, and then they can go for deep vision.
Big difference now, though, is because Yang didn't use his TP, yeah, a little bit questionable for the team fight, but it does mean that they have that summoner advantage now if they want to play cross-map. You can see that Jace has shoved the wave in on the bottom side. Yang's responding to that.
Yeah, that's why Ziv wants to definitely clear out these wards so he can just push up and then hide in Fog of War himself. Basically making it very hard for Yang to predict where he is. If Ziv's gonna play at the base, then AHQ need to siege. Then they may go for a 4-1 siege without the Nasher. If they commit to the Baron area, they have to be careful because then it becomes a 4v5 where Yang can actually TP.
Frighteningly, Macau was towards the top side. Even more so for Jockster, he's going to get smacked by a shock blast. Tokka's throws down the miasma. They're trying to clear out this wave, and Macau's going to join back up with his team. INTZ at least stave off AHQ for the moment.
I do like the fact that AHQ aren't full going ham on the Baron.
Yep.
They're still utilizing their siege cop, understanding that their poke works really well when they have INTZ in front of them, locked underneath the tower, fish in a barrel, and are trying to gain advantages through that as opposed to just tunneling hard on that Baron and giving a possible 50-50 to Revolta.
And at this point, they also see the timer remaining on the wards, and it's usually pretty much the same across all wards. So they saw that it's about like a minute left on most wards here, so they'll likely go for more pushes because they can't guarantee sweeping out all the vision themselves. So going for the push and then have time B or sweeper is actually a good approach for AHQ. They have in general been very respectful of what their opponent can do, and I think that's been the main difference in two teams who are stylistically pretty much on the same page, is the fact that AHQ have been a lot more respectful of what INTZ can do with their composition in reaction to the plays.
And piggybacking very quickly on your vision, although hold on, Jockster.
Yeah, he's going to get knocked up, headbutted back into Westor, and Ziv's going to grab the kill. Tempered Fate a little bit late, as Revolta is waiting around for some sort of flank, but 4v5, that'd be dangerous.
And since it's just a support pickup, AHQ are actually looking to contest the inhib, although Revolta now spotted.
Yep. Face off for a moment. Agree to leave each other alone.
But that leaves top lane open. Obviously, INTZ is looking for creative ways to get vision to the Baron pit, but then the door is opening here for AHQ, and they can just walk in, look to see that inhibitor here.
You got
Yang on the bar. Yep.
Yang underneath them, positioning, looking for the flank. Yes, he doesn't do a lot of damage, but there's so much damage across INT's composition. You have the Cassiopeia, you have the Lee Sin, you have the Ashe. All he really needs to do is lock them up.
And waiting for Jockster.
They do have 5 people up, and there's the headbutt. Pulverized Tokka's should be taken down. Throws out a petrifying gaze, and he's not dead yet. Albus has the ultimate as Yang very last minute on the Zhonyas and should fall down. Arn's going to grab that kill. AHQ only able to get one so far as Arn gets kicked back. Revolta trying to do the impossible, picks up the kill, and there's 2 actually for Macau. Somehow, INTZ grab a 2 for 2.
But this is disaster for INTZ. They lose their inhibitor. Thankfully, they didn't lose more than that because the Cassiopeia ult completely whiffed, as well as Kennen goes down without using his ultimate.
Yeah, this is one of those examples where they're looking so much at the setup. Everybody's looking to flank that they leave their main area of the fight exposed. Stalkers walks into Q flash range from Albus, and he was looking to follow up on the engage of Yang, but as he gets caught, it all falls to pieces. The card house starts stumbling down, and that's really the breaking point. Inhib goes down. 2 for 2, yes, but AHQ now have complete map control again.
And this is why it's so important to look for flanks. And it's almost a little bit too late since INTZ are cornered back into their base, because running front to back at AHQ's composition, they're just going to catch you with that Malzahar ult every time.
Yeah.
Speaking about being caught, Ziv almost found pockets. Able to slither his way out. Yang clearing minions towards the top side. INTZ only lose 1 inhibitor. AHQ now have pretty free reign over this Baron area, despite that ward still living.
Yeah, bot lane needs to be kind of fixed right now for AHQ, so they're going to send something down. Get the slow push going, or just make it a fast push. Ziv can stay there right now. Teleport advantage has been negated. Teleport's back on for Ziv here, so we could see a 4-1. You should see Westar pushing it out, but Ziv should take over duty there on the push.
Tuckers did just finish his Seraph's Embrace, so 3 items now for the Cassiopeia. They're slowly coming through for INTZ. 3 QSSs here as well for the jungler top and mid. Not one yet for Macau, which he's the guy that's been getting a lot of the attention.
And that's something that's very often overlooked here. What some of these picks do, like a Malzahar. Many people judge him purely on his dueling potential, but the fact that he forces 3 people to alter their build paths, hit their power spikes later because they have to pick up the QSS, you know, get that early game gold sync in, it alters the power spikes of his entire composition of INTZ, especially when behind here. So that's why Malzahar in the late game is such a strong pick, because he makes everybody slightly weaker in terms of item builds.
I'm just so proud right now that AHQ still aren't funneling into Baron. Like, I promised myself I wouldn't cry at this moment, but they're using their siege comp. They're prioritizing the structure, saying this is how we win the game. We don't need to fight them or give them an opportunity to fight them where they can get these big flanking plays on us. Let's put them into a corner and continue to drive it home.
Certainly working out as they were able to take that down that mid lane inhibitor turret. AHQ still pressuring multiple lanes at once. The super creeps working on that top side at the same time. Tempered Fate doesn't find either Ziv or Mountain. INTZ back to square one with their engage. Macau still has the arrow. Oh my, barely has his health bar though, which is the unfortunate part.
Just slowly running out of time and running out of health. If they wanted to make a play, they kind of almost missed their window too, so it's going to be another inhib down for INTZ.
Lacking the forward pressure to at least force somebody to juke in predictable patterns. Juxter was trying to throw almost a random Bard ultimate out, but if you can't force somebody to walk backwards or get punished for walking forwards, it's incredibly hard to hit that, even point blank.
Well, now Juxter, Tuckers moving himself back. Juxter was looking at him, thought he might be able to find some sort of flanking maneuver himself, as Westor does have his passive removed. Revolta over here as well. But it just looks like INTZ can't find that perfect engage, can't find what they're looking for to try and turn this game around.
You can see Revolta, he's looking for the play. They understand that it's do or die. There's the arrow, so INTZ, they fully understand.
They're trying, but it becomes so predictable that they will have to pull the trigger. Everybody knows this is the window for a desperation play. It likely won't work. INTZ knows that, AHQ knows that as this tower is falling down, but it's the last ditch effort before the third inhibitor falls, or Ziv just straight up walks with Nexus turrets.
Yeah, Nexus turret is going to fall down just by the super creeps there, as well as Yang tries to clear them out. Ziv's still here. They're fishing a barrel in this base as the spears are even flying through. Macau looking to clear things up, but INTZ, they have to give up this bottom lane inhibitor, and they are just getting out-pressured. There's no fight here. AHQ, they're just pushing them down as Revolta. Oh my goodness, the flash was predicted, the Q was as well, and Westor survives. No more engage options apart from Yang getting some miraculous flank or something. AHQ just in so much control.
They're just smothering INTZ.
Smothering is exactly the word I was looking for.
Completely locked into the base, and I'm just... Great macro and objective identification from AHQ. Again, they didn't touch the Baron to win this game.
Definitely could have at one point. That is really being too critical. Right now, they're going to go back in here. They have ways to stop this Lee Sin, who has no flash, so very predictable here. Westor has the vision to work with. There's 2 damage dealers on the stopping front though, so very little damage on the Baron itself.
Well, Tempered Fate is going to lock it up for the moment. Revolta does have to walk past Ziv and Westor, and they just both explode. Jockster as well. Tokkers throws down the ultimate, but it's to Westor's back, and in goes Yang. This is the last-ditch effort. The Malzahar falls down, but Tokkers should follow. Mountain looking to try and lock that one up, and he's going to get it. AHQ are going to take down everyone but Macau, and should be able to finish off the base, unless the minions do it for them before they get there.
Yeah, Macau desperately trying to clear some of the minions what's left. At least buff up the CSD stats before the inevitable thing will happen. AHQ, slow and steady, wins the race. Slow and steady eventually kills the base as well. Nex is going down.
Most certainly is. Arm's going to flash onto Macau because he may as well spear. Oh my gosh! Saved by the Nexus explosion, and AHQ flat out asphyxiation against INTZ.
Which means that this group is going to widen a little bit. So technically winner of this game will tie for first place just because everyone is locked up. But this game was so important, and it's nice to see that AHQ gave INTZ the respect that they deserve. Took them very seriously, played a very clean, clinical, and methodical game.
Yeah, it definitely went both ways. If you look at the composition, INTZ went ahead, pulling these moves with the Ash Arrows, the Bard Ultimates, the forward play from Talkers could have worked, but they fumbled in the early to mid game. We had initially the invade from Revolta, which was ill-advised. Then we had to make up for that play. He went top lane, but it was Red and Ziv with the hero play. 1v2 plus a million minions. Technically unfair battle there. He won that exchange. Westor rolled up, and from that point on, AHQ was in control of the game, and they decisively but slowly played it out.
Yeah, and I have to give a shout out to Westor there as well. He stayed up in CS. He was all over the map early on. Congratulations to AHQ, and there were questions about Chowie because he was looking fantastic. I mean, Zillion pick, a little bit unorthodox, but looked good. Despite the fact that they did lose the game, Westor coming back in and, man, really having a good performance in exactly the same matchup that he failed to win last time.
And I know the look that these guys have on their faces because it really sucks to lose a game in the way INTZ did, because it felt like you never could do anything, and that comes from, honestly, a lack of pre-planning and being on the same page and identifying, okay guys, not only is this what we're playing for, this is exactly how we are going to execute it. And that second step was lacking. Like, they knew they had to defend some of these objectives, like a tower, like a dragon, like a baron, but the failure wasn't in communication. Yang wasn't teleporting in at some points. We saw people all invest in the flank while the main part of the fight was kind of waiting, like, guys, are we flanking? Am I supposed to go? And while they were kind of figuring it out in the moment, Pulverized Flashlighter comes in, and suddenly the fight is over.
Just that veteran status, being able to pull the trigger when it really matters. AHQ, very familiar on this world stage.
Yeah, we have to remember that because AHQ have been here before. They looked very, very good last year at Worlds, and we'll see whether they are going to be able to continue this performance moving on into the rest of their group, because anything can happen this Worlds. We've proved it already. We'll see whether it is going to be INTZ finding some more, whether AHQ continue this sort of dominance.
You know, Coach Aaron really said it best. He had a comment on Group C, because a lot of people, when they initially looked at Group C, they said, oh, you know, this is the clear favorites in the group that's going to make it out. No problem. But Aaron said, this group is even more dangerous because if someone loses, then other teams won't cover for you. If the groups are super stacked, super close, then you can expect another team to save you. And then coin flip, everyone's close.
Or ironically, his team did exactly that. You know, they dropped the game, which was the major upset of the tournament here. They need to fight back later versus H2K and see if they can actually come out on top in that group.
They most certainly do. Bart Shox is standing by with AHQ's man in the top lane. So let's head on stage for a word.
Thank you very much, guys. Indeed, joined here by Ziv after the victory for AHQ over INTZ. And I first want to ask about that early game because over when INTZ beat EDG, there was a lot coming out of the top lane and the jungle synergy. How did you contain them here and got off to a good start?
他说，当 INTZ 打赢 EDG 的时候，那他们的上野联动非常好。然后，那你们是怎么样控制这个局面的？
就是主要是我觉得他选到他非常擅长的角色，所以这场因为我的角色前期换血的优势，所以他们来 gank 我的时候变成1打2局面，所以算是对方的失误。
So I think they gain advantage because they had their champs against EDG, but like in the laning phase, if we like exchange health, I think I would have advantage. And when they had 2v1 on me, I took advantage, and that's how we won.
Can you tell me about the first blood because that looked incredibly close?
你可以跟我们讲一下，就是 First Blood 那时候你是怎么运用的吗？然后因为感觉差很接近，差一点就换不成。
就是两边其实打到很极限的情况，我一直在注意那个凯能的位置，然后就是假装要杀李信，然后最后转去打凯能。
So it was really close, and when we were playing 2v1, I was like focusing on the position of Kennen, and I faked that I was gonna go for Lee Sin, and I went back from the Kennen.
Yeah, that looks really good, and you guys got off to a great start. You guys have been using both Chowie and Westor in the mid lane. What can we expect from that substitution going forward, and who will you maybe prefer?
他说，因为你们中路有Chowie跟 Westor， 那我们将来会看到怎么样，你们怎么运用他们在接下来的比赛。
就是我们两个中路的风格比较不一样，然后所以就是主要还是要看教练的安排。
We have very distinctive style of mid laners, so it's really based on what the coach's call is.
All right, and finally, the LMS has gotten off to rather slow start in the beginning of the tournament, 1-3 before this game, now 2-3. Why do you think the teams are having a bit of trouble starting up? Now you do have 2 victories on the board.
LMS 整体来讲，现在在这个比赛有点慢热的感觉，因为在这场比赛之前，你们是总体来讲是1-3，那现在终于来到2-3了。那你对这有什么看法？
就是可能我们在找寻游戏 meta 上就是比较没有那么的迅速，不过之后我们就逐渐调整状态，所以才会表现越好。
So at first we're still looking for the meta of this game, this patch. And we had a little bit slow start, but now we're getting the hang of it, and we'll do better.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ziv and AHQ. 2 wins on the board so far. Analyst Desk, take it away.
Thank you very much, Shocks. A fantastic performance out of Ziv there in the top lane, and we will get into the play itself. But before we do that, I want to talk about compositions here, because in that pick ban, once again, after day one's performance, Yang not getting that Gnar, put into that Jace-Kennen matchup, and we saw how that went.
You almost never see 2v1s happen, 1v2s happen anymore in professional play, but Ziv was able to do that, which to me just kind of speaks to the way Clement and I were making the predictions before the game. We thought Ziv wasn't going to fall prey to the same way Mouse did, and it wasn't even close to that. I did not actually expect it to be that brutal early on, but Ziv really stepped up.
Especially, sorry, go on.
I think Ziv's just like a great player. He's a 2-time MVP. And this game, I think what he demonstrated is that he can carry in the top lane. Before, he was just on tanks, initiation, but this time, Mountain's playing around him, and they are showing that they can just penetrate the top and win the game from there.
And they really like the moves that AHQ made with Ziv particularly. Once they took down the bottom turret, and they just have him push up all the way, and then just group with the team, use that Jace to poke out and take the top and mid turrets, and they played such a clean game at that point that this was one of the best games we've seen so far.
And it all started with that 1v2 for First Blood, followed by the second kill in the top lane. Let's take another look, brought to you by Acer.
Yeah, if you look here, like what Ziv is doing is actually stacking out the minion wave. In the interview, he says he knows that the gank is coming, and Mountain's not that far behind here. He's keeping an eye on Kennen at all times. The Kennen Q does not land. It hits on a minion. He goes for Lee Sin, fakes back, goes for the Kennen, misses by a hair, but by this time, Westor is already in the fight. You see Yang flash here. Bad move, gets hit twice. And then again, Mountain's playing around the top lane. He knows Ziv is off to a good start. He knows if he just pushes this one more time, then Ziv will dominate this lane. They go in for a super clean kill. Fakes the Q on the first auto attack, lands it on the second one.
And from there, you can see they actually closed out the game pretty well. The overall game time only being 35 minutes. They had a 7,000 gold lead at the 20-minute mark. So this really was some devastation by AHQ over INTZ.
And while I'd like to give a lot of the credit towards AHQ being able to play cleanly, they took a lot of skirmishes that you'd look and say, why is this fight happening? But every time that they took it was around objective. So even if they lost a fight, they were still able to convert that. We saw them being able to take down multiple turrets, even a base turret just because of that. But on the other side, INTZ, their vision controls is completely abysmal, and I have to attribute it to the fact that there was no red trinket from Revolta at any time.
I think that's the big takeaway here for me, at least, is looking at AHQ having a very clear understanding of how to win with their composition. They have a poke composition. They're not going to give themselves the opportunity to be Kennen flanked, Lee Sin flanked, and lose a 5v5 fight. They're just going to play around the objectives, play it slow and smart. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and I think in a bigger picture perspective, thank goodness for AHQ, because they make more sense than anyone else in this group. They lost to EDG, and they were able to take care of business against INTZ, and then had a pretty close game against H2K. They're the one team that's fitting the expectations of what we thought would happen coming into the tournament.
Now we just have to hope that they actually show the Flash Wolves how to close out games as well. And we can see both the LMS teams being able to convert these massive leads into a really nice wins.
Player of the game going to Ziv there. We heard him on stage, and of course it was that focus in the top lane that really drove it home for them. 5, 2, and 6 on that Jay. So he's been a top performer for them throughout this tournament so far.
Exactly, and previously when Ziv had been a top performer, it was in the Maokai meta. He was playing a bunch of tanks. This is actually an incredibly promising sign for AHQ, because if he can play more Jace, which by the way was picked blind because the Kennen matchup was saved until the end by INTZ, if they can play around him, AHQ can go places.
All right, well, game 1 is in the books. We're taking a quick break, but stay tuned. When we return, the LPL's first seed, Edward Gaming, takes on Europe's H2K.
Casa quadrada.
Yang, he might just be an afterthought kill as the shot blast comes down. Will the marker stop? Good flash. But Westor's turned up and is going to get the first blood.
Revolta is underneath them.
Oh, good Q. He's still looking for it. Fair bit of damage now as the kick's not playing up the minions. They're not there, and Revolta, he's going to be taken down. Tokka's heading around as well as Revolta getting chased by the cat and the cow. Jockster over the wall. Westor, he's going to be taken down, but Ziv's going to get revenge. AHQ only able to get one so far as Arn gets kicked back. Revolta trying to do the impossible, picks up the kill.
巴德，我们要吃掉神女没大，小心凯能上去打，可以上去打，剩3只，凯能进场。
AHQ flat out asphyxiation against INTZ.